Hi everybody, this is Chabad YouTube. This is Yeshua Durkin, and today we're focusing on lessons in Kuntres Hechaltzu, a treatise on Ahavas Yisroel by the Rebbe Reshab. I'm recording this because although we had the share on Zoom yesterday, there were some technical difficulties and we didn't manage to record anything. So I'm just doing this so everybody can be caught up to speed for next week when we go on to chapter 2. So I got to show the section chapter 1. You're going to be wondering how on earth does this relate to Ahavas Yisroel. So chapters 1 through, this is the table of contents. I'm going to put this here so I can be a little more comfortable. So chapters 1 through 4, the Meimer focuses on the war with Midian, seeing it as the reflection of a spiritual conflict between strife and friction, identified with Midian, and unity identified with God's name Havaya. Yeshus is the source for strife. Yeshus is self-importance. It's when you think more about yourself than others. And that's the cause of strife. One that's making conflict and mechlekes with other people. While unity results from bittul, humility, selflessness. The world of Tohu was characterized by Yeshus, self-importance, and therefore it could not be maintained. That's chapters 1 through 4. And that's just an explanation just on the first 4 chapters. You learn by the title itself that if you are humble and you don't have such yeshus, such self-indulgence, then you're able to have true Ahavas Yisroel. But if you have strife and self-ego and self-importance, Tanya would even say that we learned the week before, if you prioritize the body and not the soul, then you're going to have strife and all that. All this Yeshus really happens when you prioritize the body over the soul, because everyone's soul is all the same. This is just from last week I could go back into. And then I would like to bring this up. Oh wow, there's other stuff in here. I'm going to put an additional thing in this book that nobody in the group got to read yesterday. Just because it's something I was mentioning in the group, but this is what the publishers are actually putting down. The Rebbeim often highlighted the difference between Chassidus and Musar. Both focus on steering a person away from self-oriented preoccupation with materiality toward activities that promote spiritual growth. However, Musar often focuses primarily on the negative, pointing out the harmful effects of such conduct on the individual and the community, both in this world and the next. By contrast, Chassidus focuses on diffusing light, calling a person's attention to his inner godly potential and the lofty spiritual goals he should pursue. To borrow the picturesque imagery of the Rebbe Reshab, darkness you don't drive away with a stick. Of course, there's a need to confront one's own weaknesses. However, Chassidim traditionally achieve that goal through honest introspection. There is a time-honored Chassidic saying, a person doesn't really need Musar Sfarim. All he has to do is look in a mirror. Looking at oneself honestly and objectively is a treasured objective of a Chassidic Farbrengen. As a Tzemach Tzedek once commented, attending Chassidic Farbrengens cost me a lot of bittul Torah, neglect of Torah study. However, it was well worth it because of the Rebbeinish greater effect of those Farbrengens. Just as a greater removes the coarseness from a valuable object, The participants in a Hasidic Farbrengen encourage and help each other to polish their inner gem, their soul. So yeah, you might lose out on learning Torah at a Farbrengen, but you're going to refine your soul, so it's completely worth it. Now, for those that don't know, if they want to know kind of what the Tzemach Tzedek looks like, you could check out my Instagram profile. I use the picture of the Tzemach Tzedek's drawing as my profile. He's the third Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Meimer entitled Hechaltzu should be seen in such a light. Although the Rebbe Reshab uses harsh and critical language more frequently than in other works, the emphasis is oriented positively. A person is shown a path that enables him to rise above his self-concern, thereby cultivating positive interpersonal relationships and encouraging the development of a stable community. The fact that others prefer different perspectives and values should not be considered as a challenge to oneself. It should be considered as a means to broaden one's horizons and as a springboard for personal growth. It is also important to appreciate the balance between the Rebbe Reshab's emphasis on obliterating Yeshus, self-importance, and the manner in which he underscores how unity can be developed. He does not call for uniformity. Instead, he explains in depth how diversity need not lead to division. Indeed, true unity comes from a harmonious integration of diverse standpoints. By providing us with an elaborate analysis of these principles as they evolve from the spiritual realms above, he enables us to emulate and incorporate them in our daily conduct down here below. There's so many insights on here just on the overview. I'm going to skip to our vision because that's what we focused on before. Maybe I'll make another section. Comment down below if you guys would like me to make an entire section designated just for the overview of the book. And I think I might do it anyways, just because I have time and nothing better to do. I might as well make an overview on the book. But right now I'm going to our vision. I wanted to at least get people caught up in the book, what we covered yesterday. Our vision. Since this year is the 100th anniversary of the Rebbe Reshab's passing, or should I say the 101st anniversary of the Rebbe Reshab's passing, we wanted to enable Hasidim who were unable to study his teachings in the original to strengthen their spiritual bond with him. Also, the beginning of this translation coincided with the outbreak of coronavirus. The Rebbe often emphasized the need to minimize strife and promote unity as a shield against danger. In that connection, he would frequently cite the warning of our sages regarding the possible repercussions of discord and controversy. The people of David's generation were all righteous. Nevertheless, because there were malicious gossipers among them, when they went out to war, there were those who fell in battle. The people of Ahavas' generation were idolaters. Nevertheless, because there were no malicious gossipers among them, when they went out to war, they were victorious. Conversely, as the Alter Rebbe commented on the phrase, "Bless us, our Father, all as one." Unity is a conduit for God's blessing. At that time, and still today, when each of us felt and feels the need for blessings from above, it is important to cultivate a mindset that encourages the love for our fellow men and dispels all thoughts of discord and conflict. To inspire and motivate such a spirit of unity, we felt the need to publish this Meimer. Little did we realize how important the theme of unity and the need to reduce strife would become. In the ensuing months, friction and discord became rife throughout the U.S., and indeed were seen throughout the world. Clashes arose between large segments of the populace, and even between families and friends. As you guys can all recall, during these times of COVID-19, it got really stupid. There became conflicts between those that believe that you should wear a face mask, and those that believe you shouldn't. Those that believe you should stay home and not daven with the minyan, and those that believe you should have Mesiras Nefesh and daven with the minyan. Those that believe that you should get a vaccine, and those believe that you shouldn't. All these stupid things revolving around COVID-19. Those that believe you should wear a face mask, and those believe that you shouldn't. Man, I don't want to put my politics on this, but a lot of this forced protocols drove me kind of crazy with this. Baruch Hashem, it's mellowing down a bit. And this happened amongst even Jews, unfortunately. So when faced with crises of a larger scale, a person can feel small and powerless, wondering what he can do. Countering that mistaken approach, Chassidus teaches that microcosm affects the macrocosm. A change in one's own world, a little more achdus, a little more togetherness, a genuine shown of care for the person next door creates a ripple effect. And I was bringing up an example. Menachem Mordechai and the Chabad YouTube group gave me just a little bit of tzedakah so I can have the Zoom Pro group, and it's enabling me to have 2 classes a week instead of 1 class a week. Even more when I can get better internet. I don't know. I might do stuff on the Zoom thing. I just find that the quality of my videos are better from my Galaxy phone, and I don't want to do Zoom if people aren't going to attend it anyways. I'd rather just make YouTube videos and have people watch it when they get the time to do it. But anyways, I have people prepared to come to Zoom classes Sundays and Thursdays, and we'll see what happens. And that ripple effect of just $15 can cause lots of people to learn more Torah. That's just a little bit of tzedakah. This purpose became part of the goal in publishing Hechaltzu, to motivate people to open themselves up and show love to another person, with the optimistic expectation that in response, the recipients of that love will also become more loving and will show love to others. Then after this, we just went to the actual book. I'm going to do the intro to this also, even though I didn't do this yesterday. Hechaltzu, like many Hasidic Meimerim, begins by referring to an episode in the Chumash, posing several questions concerning the narrative. Following the well-known axiom, the Torah describes the supernal realms and alludes to this lowly earthly plane. The Meimer understands and explains that narrative as reflecting lofty spiritual concepts which were ultimately manifest in the events that occurred on this material plane. However, in the interim, the Meimer spends a large amount of time explaining the spiritual concepts, and only after they are thoroughly clarified does the Meimer return and resolve the questions that it initially proposed regarding the biblical narrative. The narrative here begins with God's charge to Moshe to wage war against Midian. Together with the Moabites, the Midianites had sent their daughters to seduce Jewish men and motivate them to serve the false divinity Baal Peor. As a result, God brought a plague upon the Jewish people. Okay, for those of you that went to this year, we did the entire thing in both Hebrew and English. I don't have a lot of time for this. I just want to get people caught up. So just for the sake of getting people caught up, I'm going to do everything in just English. And this is from the Torah portion of Pinchas. So God, it's going to be in like 3 weeks. Right now we're on Korach. Then we're going to do, I believe, Balak and Pinchas. I think in 2 weeks we're going to do this. Maybe 3 weeks. God spoke to Moshe, saying, exact the retribution of the children of Israel from the Midianites, Afterwards you shall be gathered to your people. Gathered to your people is a biblical euphemism for death. Nevertheless, they use the word gathered to your people. It seems to me that the lashon in Hebrew, achar teasef el amecha, afterwards you will be gathered to your people, is used because Moshe Rabbeinu, although his body physically passed away, he nevertheless didn't die, because a tzaddik never dies, especially the Nasi D'Reinu, the leader of our generation. Moshe Rabbeinu is the first redeemer of Israel, and he's the last redeemer of Israel. So he was gathered to his people, but nevertheless, he is guiding each and every leader of the generation to this very day. Therefore, they didn't want to say he died, rather he was gathered to his people. In response to God's command, Moshe spoke to the people, saying, "Arm men for the army, for among yourselves, so that they may go against Midian, to exact retribution of God from Midian. 1,000 per tribe for all the tribes of Israel." It is necessary to understand the relationship between the war against Midian and the passing of Moshe. Why does the above verse indicate that the two are interdependent, so that only after Moshe exacts retribution from the Midianites will he be gathered to his people? Two inferences can be drawn from this verse. First, the war against Midian had to be waged, specifically by Moshe. Therefore, although his death had already been decreed, as stated previously in Parshas Pinchas, go up to Mount Avirim and be gathered as Aaron your brother was gathered. He was nevertheless given time to first wage war against Midian. This war was not delayed until after Moshe's passing, as were the other wars that Yisroel would wage in the future. This implies that the war against Midian had to be conducted by Moshe personally. It was he who had to muster the men for the army and so on. Based upon a straightforward understanding of the Torah, one might explain that all matters that preceded the entry into the land of Canaan had to be directed by Moshe. An example, the war with Sichon and Og, those were giants, the distribution of their land to the tribes of Reuben and Gad, and the like. Therefore, the war against Midian was also waged by him. However, the verse that commands him to exact the retribution of the children of Israel, afterwards you shall be gathered, implies that it was of particular significance that this war take place in his lifetime, that he specifically be the one to command that it be waged. It was very important for Moshe to have to finish this war in his lifetime, rather than pawn it off to Yoshua ben Nun. Moreover, the verse seems to imply that the root of Moshe's soul would attain perfection as a result of this war. Since God connected Moshe's passing with war against Midian, the implication is that one was dependent on the other. The waging the war against Midian, Moshe would complete his divine service in this world and be prepared to pass into the next. Hence, the Torah states that after he exacts retribution from Midian, he will be gathered to his people. It is known that the passing of a tzaddik represents his attainment of the highest possible level of elevation, which is reached after his work in this world has been completed. I really feel this way, like, with the Chabad Rebbeim, even though they all physically passed away in this world, their presence can be felt in their work and their Torah and their work that they did. When you see a bunch of Lubavitchers getting Jews to put on tefillin, I feel the Rebbe is with us. There are people that are still writing to the Rebbe in the Igros Kodesh. Igros Kodesh is a compilation of the letters that the Rebbe wrote to people in general, and they compiled them all together and made a whole bunch of books out of them. I feel the presence. I'm not going all the way for guidance. like the Mishachism do, it's kind of complicated and it's very hard for me to explain it, but nevertheless, I can't deny feeling the presence of the Rebbeim with all the work they did. And it says in Tanya that a tzaddik doesn't die. A tzaddik lives forever. In fact, I learned from Rabbi Manis Friedman, Jews don't die. The only thing that dies is the body. The soul lives forever. How much more so a tzaddik? They say by a tzaddik, a righteous person, that if you would go to his cave or his grave and dig up the body of a righteous person, it wouldn't be decomposed. Something very special about tzaddikim. Upon finishing the task ordained for him by the divine wisdom, the tzaddik soul rises to the ultimate spiritual heights at the moment of his passing. Like right now, the Rebbe, I feel, could be reached by millions of people at the same time, as opposed to when he was physically in this world. Now that his soul went to Shemayim, it's like he permeates the whole world with his presence. It's literally amazing. Like, many people can have an effect and be inspired to do Torah mitzvahs from the works of the tzaddikim after their passing. I feel the presence of the Alter Rebbe. You know how many times people are constantly teaching Tanya? And the Baal Shem Tov, this love for every fellow Jew. The Baal Shem Tov through the Rebbe, you can feel their presence right now. When we're learning Hechaltzu. I got it. For those that didn't see the beginning. When you're learning this book, you're connecting with the Rebbe Reshab. He's the Rebbe that established Tomchei Tamimim, all the Chabad yeshivos. On the basis it is possible to understand the implications of the verse. Exact the retribution of the children of Israel from Midianites, afterward you shall be gathered. Okay. Through this war, the perfection of the root of Moshe's soul through his service throughout his lifetime will be reached, enabling him to rise from one spiritual level to another in the heavenly realms above. All of this then must be understood. Why did the war have to be waged specifically by Moshe? Why would his soul attain perfection through this? Kitzer, the summary, the war against Midian, its connection to Moshe and his passing. This chapter introduces God's command to Moshe to take the revenge against Midian. The Rebbe Reshab poses questions that require us to dig deeper in order to understand the inner meaning and spiritual significance of the conflict against Midian, why Moshe had to lead the war against them, and its relevance to our lives. These questions and those raised in chapter 2 are the gateway through which we will begin to explore the concepts which lie at the heart of this Meimer. One last thing I forgot to explain, now that we finished chapter 1, is what was going on in the Parsha of Pinchas. Moreover, it was actually the Parsha before that which led into this. It was, if you go to the Parsha Balak, King Balak hired Balaam, some idolater, sorcerer, or whatever, to use all his crazy stuff to curse the Jewish people. He tried and tried and tried as he might, but he couldn't curse the Jewish people. He saw how tznius we were, how modest we were. Girls, wear your skirts long, don't be all provocative. He saw how modest the tents were. He saw how holy the Jewish nation was. Instead of cursing us, he blessed us. But he didn't leave without giving us some damage. What did he do? He realized in order to make us fall, he couldn't simply just curse us. He had to make us not have our merit. not be worthy of all these blessings? That he was even blessing us himself. How does he make us not be worthy of blessings? Lead us to idol worship, avodah zarah. One of the 7 laws of Noah that prohibited by even the nations of the world. The idol worship is forbidden for everybody. Nevertheless, how did he get the Jews to do that? He got very beautiful women from Midian to seduce the men. Men couldn't control their downstairs, I should say. They were seduced, and part of the beginning of the war is Pinchas. He's a zealot, and there may have been some type of question whether he could, slaughter one of the princes who was sleeping with a Midianite woman. I don't know. It was, for some reason there was a question. You know what? Maybe I can get out the Chumash with the other phone, or did I put the other phone? Regardless, it's right here. I really like to get a Chumash, but as of right now, I'm going to go to Chabad.org. The main thing is they were doing something forbidden, and Pinchas slaughtered the rebel. I don't know all the details. I'm not the biggest Talmud Chacham. I think I want to go to Parshas Balak. Parshas Balak. Balak. Anyways, in this Parsha, Pinchas slaughtered the intermarriage situation. And right around this time in the Parshas of Pinchas, Moshe was commanded to go to the war of Midian because Balaam caused us all to sin. And as we all sinned with the Midianites, that caused a plague on the Jewish people. And Hashem had to be prayed to. Moshe had to pray to Hashem to get the plague to stop. That was the whole idea. And that's it. Everybody, I wish you guys a successful week.